Here we are again with World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. One or two more words about Pakistan. Holbrook says Pakistan is a sanctuary for those Taliban and Al-Qaeda. He also says that the goal of the policy is to separate Al-Qaeda from the Taliban. Isn't that strange? Everything you're doing drives these two forces together, even though we're now again, as soon as you say Al-Qaeda, you're in the land of myth and make-believe and God knows what. Al-Qaeda is the CIA Arab Legion. Don't ever forget it. But obviously he's saying, well, in the Vietnam War, there were these sanctuaries, Cambodia and Laos and North Vietnam. They were all clobbered, and the two of them were invaded. So what's going to happen to Pakistan? He says Pakistan is the sanctuary today. And he hastens to add, of course, they're our ally. We couldn't bomb them. Well, they're bombing them all the time with these Hellfire missiles fired from new and better Predator drones. So you get the idea. There was a bomb just yesterday in Peshawar, Pakistan. Look at be interesting to see a count of all the bombs that have gone off in Peshawar over the last year. It's going to be a tremendous total. This time they bombed the press club, the journalists club in Peshawar. A couple of people killed on that one. In terms of the sanctuary line, go back to the New York Times, December 4th, op-ed contributor Seth Jones, title of the op-ed, Take the War to Pakistan. This character is from the Rand Corporation, and you get the idea. He says that the problem is that there's a sanctuary in Pakistan. Sanctuary, the operative term. He quotes a Marine officer tells this Rand Corporation guy, Seth Jones, in the New York Times, all significant meetings of the Taliban take place in Baluchistan. There's the Quetta Shura. Many of the group's senior intelligence military commanders are based there. Quote, the Taliban sanctuary in Baluchistan is catastrophic for us, a Marine said during my recent trip to Afghanistan's Helmand province, Helmand being across from Baluchistan. So there's a significant element of Baluchis in Helmand province. Local Taliban fighters get strategic and operational guidance from across the border, as well as supplies and technical components for their improvised explosive devices. Anyway, you get the idea. Now let's quickly change gears and say something about Copenhagen. This is very interesting. The green fascist genocidal forces have been discomfited. The warmongers were going to make Copenhagen into the crowning achievement, the final breakthrough in favor of this worldwide green dictatorship. And my reading is that they have failed. And they have failed because powerful countries refuse to go along. This is a good case study that you cannot talk about the New World Order and pretend that Russia and China are integral parts of it, because they're not. And here's what we have. First of all, the East Anglia Climate Research Unit emails. Where did they come from? Well, according to the Daily Mail of London, the server where those emails were first posted that started the firestorm exposing the quackademics and the charlatans and the neo-McCarthyites, the people who wanted to fudge the information, criminal activity. It was a server in Tomsk, Siberia. Yes, Russian Federation, Russia, Tomsk, Siberia. Tomsk being one of those, under the Soviet period, it was a science city. It was actually a closed city. Foreigners had a hard time getting in there. So this exposed, obviously, the fraud of this guy, Michael Mann, one of the leading quackademics, who came up with this hockey stick graph a couple of years ago saying that we had 1,000 years of declining temperatures, except, I'm sorry, the medieval warm period, Michael. I'd like to thank Stephen Kroc and his associate Saad Ayer from We Are Change Chicago. They were kind enough to cite me on a recent Russia Today broadcast. Steve Kroc talked about what I had said about the climate records. Well, we're talking historians now, right? We don't need climatologists because this is all within history. We have written records. We have written records showing that when Leif Erikson and Eric the Red got to Newfoundland and Canada, it was warm. There were vines growing there. Was warmer then than it is now. So we have not reached the point of the medieval warm period. It's a big problem for them that there was a medieval warm period. So we don't need quackademic climatologists from a hooked-up discipline that never existed before Al Gore and Prince Charles invented it. You just look at the historical records because we're dealing with historical time. In other words, written records and sources, right? You have real historical sources where you can say, yes, there was a medieval warm period. So thanks to the people from We Are Change Chicago and Steve Kroc, the Russians therefore get credit. The Russian hackers, the best hackers in the world, apparently. It looks like they broke into Citibank as well. If that's true, maybe that Citibank there was a story to try to go after the Russian hackers. So thank God for the Russians. It looks like they leaked. They were the whistleblowers who leaked this damning material exposing the quackademics and charlatans. Here's the other one. You've got to read the article in The Guardian. How is it that the infamous Copenhagen Monster Fest of ghouls and genocidalists blew up in such a spectacular way, such a spectacular failure? So The Guardian has a guy called Mark Lynas, Lynas, and he says, I was there. I was part of a delegation. He doesn't say which one. I was a fly on the wall. Who is it that blocked the worldwide carbon dictatorship? He says, it was China. It was Prime Minister Wen, W-E-N, of China. China wrecked the climate deal. They all agree it's a disaster, right? The Christian Aid says we have to blame the rich countries. Friends of the Earth say the rich countries are bullying the third world. Greenpeace says Obama is the guy who killed a climate accord, right? We had the protests of Tuvalu being a British puppet state of 13,000 people in the Pacific, and you saw their spokesperson, looks like he came from Savile Row or maybe Carnaby Street in London. Tuvalu looks like a rotten borough, a pocket borough controlled by Prince Charles and Prince Philip, and they get their spokesperson in there. Anyway, let's just come back in a second, the full story of how China blocked the fascist, globalist carbon dictatorship.